What's up, guys? Welcome to a special episode of the Nest podcast. This is the Nest Top 10 Greatest WrestleMania Moments Countdown. And joining me tonight are my two co hosts for the evening. First up, from McDojo Show, Wallow J. What's
What
up,
up?
dude?
What up? Yep, formerly Locker Room Talk. We're transitioning to the McDojo Show.
I was going to say our listeners probably know you as Wallow from Locker Room Talk.
That's right.
That's changing. He's now taking over the McDojo Show. He and Chris are still going to be doing the same show, just under a new name. So go check them out. Go give them their likes and follows and all that stuff. Also joining us is my main man, Jose, who is the biggest wrestling fan that I know. And when we came up with the idea for a top 10 list, I said he has to be on the show. He agreed. He's here. What's up, man?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Great to be back.
Yeah, that's right. Because you've been on once or twice before, right?
Once or twice, it's all been wrestling-related episodes.
You're kind of the Nest correspondent when it comes to any kind of wrestling. So, welcome back. So, like I said, this is going to be a top 10 list. And before we get started, there are so many amazing WrestleMania moments. It's hard to put them in a list of just 10. So what we did with our list is we tried to take moments that changed history or were the culmination of a great story arc or important significant events. And I think we came up with a pretty awesome top 10 list. And if you don't like it, then tell us in the comments. Let us know what you like and what you don't like.
Hey, If you don't like it, I got 3 words for you. Well, 2. Yeah, you gave me that sign. It was 2.
Yeah. I saw where you were going with it. So
yeah, suck it.
Yeah, I was interested to see where we were going to get to with the 3 words.
Well, you can suck it, but that's 4. Damn, I can't count for shit today.
Suck a nut. There you go.
Suck.
So, without any much more delay, because we would just sit here and talk about a bunch of nonsense and a bunch of bullshit, but let's go ahead and get straight into the list. And it's WrestleMania 31 when Seth Rollins steals the show. And guys, this is one that is significant for me because I was actually at this one in person.
Where was this one held at?
This was in Levi Stadium in Santa Clara, California.
Okay, so I'm going to defer on this one to you guys because I haven't watched too many WrestleManias in the last 10, 15 years.
Okay, you're our old head.
But I do know who Seth Rollins is.
Yeah.
He's that tall white guy with the knife on his chest, right?
We know you're kidding because you're the MMA guy, and of course you know who Brock Lesnar is.
Just kidding. I know who he is. He's Becky Lynch's side piece.
Yeah.
Because I'm his main guy.
Oh.
Well, her main guy. I said his. Her main guy.
She is the man.
Yeah.
There you go.
So I was there whenever the match between Seth and Randy Orton took place, and they were battling it out. The sun was beating down. It was hot. And whenever Rollins went for that second curb stomp of the match and he got flipped up into the air, that RKO was a thing of beauty because it hit truly out of nowhere, and the crowd popped. Everybody was doing the holy shit, because it was something that we had all never seen before.
Well, before we continue, have you ever seen Randy Orton in a bad storyline? I mean, I remember watching him when he was getting started, and he seems like he always was in a good storyline. So I assumed, I would assume that one with Rollins, who was a young guy, up and coming, and talented as he is, that he would be also in a great match with him.
Well, no, they
I
had a
mean,
great
fair point.
storyline and a great build-up. But as far as like for Randy being in a bad storyline, that would be the Bray Wyatt one from a few years ago. And the
That was a bad one.
WrestleMania match was completely garbage.
Is that the one where he turned and he was supposed to be like one of the Bray Wyatt's allies, and he was just
Hmm.
like kind of like in the background and not really being the main guy?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then he a month before flipped on him, setting up the match. The match was very forgettable between them. And then, of course, what's known for that one is when Randy was walking down, they tried to do an animatronic snake following him, but it looked more like a big giant sperm.
That's funny. Well, I guess I have to eat my words. I guess there is a bad storyline there. All right,
Well,
continue.
they're bound to happen. It happens with everybody. So yeah, so that RKO was a thing of beauty, and then Rollins went to the back, and that was all that you thought that you were going to see of him that night. But no, he cashes in to make it a triple threat match for the main event at WrestleMania against him, that guy with the thing on his chest, Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns, former teammate in the Shield, and he came in and picked the perfect opportunity to come in and cash in. Jose, you were watching from home, obviously, and I'm sure you popped whenever it happened because everybody in Levi Stadium, all 754 million that were in attendance, we all popped. And I know you did too at home.
Oh, absolutely. That was a definitely, again, we're going with the Randy out of nowhere. Nobody saw it coming. You think you're getting the finish already to the main event between Brock and Roman, and then out of nowhere, you just hear Seth's music hit. I mean, I have it on speakers, and just loud sound just comes out. You just see him darting down the aisle with the briefcase in hand, cashes it in, and not even maybe 5 more minutes later, he is the new world heavyweight champion. And I mean, I could just imagine like how you said you being there live, it must have just been an explosion of sound.
Yeah, I mean it's like any of the greatest sports moments that you can imagine. Just the crowd erupts, everybody in unison stands and starts screaming. It's something that's truly awesome to be part of, and that was a cool moment to see in person.
Now, did he win the Money in the Bank in WrestleMania as well, or did he
No,
already have it from a previous pay per view?
he already had it from a previous event.
Okay,
He carried it in, but he cashed it that night. Uh,
nice.
and we talk about moments that the crowd just completely took over. You can't help but to talk about WrestleMania 30 and Yeselmania.
I remember seeing some of the highlights for this. This is the one where what's his name? Brian.
Daniel Bryan, yep.
Daniel Bryan comes back after being hurt for over a year or 2 years, something like that. He had concussion issues
Well, no, this was before it.
before it. Oh,
Yes.
damn. Okay, I'm like I'm lost here.
We'll get into some older ones here in a minute, Wallow. Jose, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about the history of Yeselmania?
That was such a ground roots buildup because it really started the WrestleMania before that when Daniel Bryan was beaten by Sheamus in 18 seconds, and then that kind of started seeding into the underdog story, and he slowly started getting over organically with the crowd, building up to the match at SummerSlam with Cena, where he won originally the WWE Championship, and then to have Triple H turn on him, pedigree him, and then have Randy Orton cash in on him to start the authority angle against Daniel Bryan, and then just have that slowly build up over the fall, winter, going into the Royal Rumble, where it was really hitting that fever point where everybody wanted to see Daniel Bryan win the Rumble, and when he didn't show up, everybody just lost their mind. And Batista was the big comeback of that Rumble, and they all turned on him. So he wins the Rumble, crowd turns on him, and they just want Daniel Bryan to be the guy. at WrestleMania. And you had the moment where everybody stormed the ring at the end of one Raw, and you had a bunch of people in the ring with yes shirts shouting yes with Daniel Bryan. That was a great moment. And then leading up to WrestleMania itself, where you have the opening match being Daniel Bryan against Triple H for a chance to go into the main event. And that match alone itself was a very solid match, which of course Daniel Bryan wins, but to play the whole injury angle where he is hurt and then going with the odds completely stacked against him into the main event to ultimately, triumph at the end and have a great moment.
Yeah, and like Jose said, he was always told that he was a B+ player, that he was second best, that he would never be the face, but the fans made him the face of the WWE and made him the rock star type guy. And he finally got his moment at the end of that WrestleMania 30, and to see the sea of people pumping their fists up in the air and just screaming yes at the top of their lungs. It was awesome. It was so cool. And he like Jose said, had to go through pretty much everybody that the company wanted to be as the face of the company. Randy Orton, they had to go through Triple H, he had to go through Batista, all the guys that Vince McMahon wants to shove down your throats. Bryan had to beat all in one night. It was pretty awesome.
And that was the cap off of WrestleMania that already had a lot of moments already happened before that. I mean, that's where you had Brock being Undertaker and ending the streak as well. So you had that shock of that moment. People were still reeling from that and kind of thinking, oh, this just happened. And then they were able to give them and send them home happy with having a great moment.
Absolutely.
Why do you guys think they did that though with the Taker? He's always been a company guy. I I would think that you want to give him something apart, when he retires, something that he could be like, proud of, like never being beaten at a WrestleMania or something like that.
More on that later. Let's
Okay.
go ahead and talk about WrestleMania 3 whenever Wallow was watching and Hulk slammed Andre.
I remember this, man. I think in like the sixth grade, and we rented the video from like a little corner store that was like around the block. There was no Blockbusters back in the day. I think it took like a week for them to get it, and as soon as it came out, me and my cousin grabbed it and we went over and and watched it, and I was in awe. I mean, I loved Hulk Hogan back as a kid, and seeing him pick up Andre, it was like, oh my god, I can't believe he did it. And I believe they were in Detroit, right? There was like 90,000 people or 86,000 people, something like that.
Somewhere around there.
450 million, yeah,
Yeah,
something.
the 450 million people just going crazy when he picked him up. I mean, I heard that he got hurt. He tore his like some of his back muscles, but still, the fact that he picked up Andre and slammed him, that was a huge deal because nobody ever beat Andre.
Yeah.
And in all essence, it was the passing of the torch because Andre was getting up there in age. He couldn't do, many of the things that he used to do. But it was a great moment for me. I remember it, like it was yesterday.
And that's why it made it to the list, is because that was a passing of the torch. It
Yeah.
was, a very significant moment, because then from then on, Hulk Hogan was the man and Andre faded out.
Yeah.
And the crowd was so great. I was going back and watching some of these old matches whenever we were preparing this list, and this was one of the ones that I went back to and watched. There's a scene when Andre headbutts the post, and the crowd erupts because they're like, "Oh shit, we might actually see him lose."
Right.
And that was such a significant thing. They don't build guys like that anymore.
I mean, he was one of a kind. And you can even say Hogan himself was one of a kind because that was where it started his peak as being the guy of wrestling in the 80s, going into the 90s. That was really, he already had his kind of run building up with WrestleMania 1 in the main event, WrestleMania 2 being a role in it, and then WrestleMania 3 kind of being that coronation point, saying, here, strap. I mean, they say strap the rocket, but the rocket's already strapped on. It was just adding more fuel to it and pushing him up even higher and being, okay, he's going to carry us for the next couple of years. And Andre, after that, like I said, he knew how to do business, as they say, and was able to pass and then just slowly, step away as his health was declining. Obviously, as we all know, when he passed on.
I think he had like one more run, but he gave the title to the $1 million Man. That was I think 90 or 89.
That was the first Saturday night main event that was
Yep,
televised on NBC.
I remember
And yeah,
that too.
that was a big controversial finish because they had the twin referees in there, and that led to it was in the 80s because that led to WrestleMania 4 tournament where Macho Man
Ah, that's right.
won the heavyweight title.
See, that's why he's the resident
Yeah,
expert
for
on
sure.
this shit, you know? So, Jose, why don't you go ahead and tell us about number 7 on the countdown?
Oh man, this one, especially after just watching Dark Side of the Ring.
How is that?
Oh man, I mean, 2 episodes in, the Benoit one, it is wow. I mean, that one really it pulls your emotions. Like literally got chills.
Mm-hmm.
um, and the first half of it really covers a lot of Eddie and Chris's relationship, and of course, it ends with that WrestleMania 20 moment where Chris won the World Heavyweight Championship, and then Eddie goes into the ring with them, and they celebrate. And in hindsight, of course, no. People say if anything, they could have called it there. Like both of them, if they would have just stepped away after that, we might still have them. They might still be around. But of course, that doesn't happen, and that didn't happen. Anybody who knew their careers going back to ECW, WCW, some even back to their New Japan days, knows their journey and how much they clawed and you know tried to get to the top of the mountain. And even though in WCW, I think for a brief moment Benoit did win the heavyweight championship, it was at the end of WCW, so it didn't really carry any weight to it. You
Right.
know, once they went to WWE and started their journey there, and then Eddie having his ins and outs, battles with alcohol, addiction, being fired, being rehired, and kind of gaining the trust back to be able to be crowned the WWE champion, beating Brock, a month before that WrestleMania, and then both having their moments there. It was truly a special moment there. I mean, for me, it's being a fan of them from in the '90s. I loved it when it happened then, and now when you look back at it now, it's a bittersweet moment to look back to, knowing what happened after that.
Yeah, it is bittersweet when you look back on it because as great as they both were, Eddie is looked at as a hero and Chris is looked at as a villain forever.
It's
And
tough.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, when you do something like that, it's kind of hard for people to sympathize
yeah,
with somebody who basically killed his son, killed his wife, and then killed himself. A lot of people are going to see that as a cowardly act. I mean, this is a man who was 220 pounds of or 230 pounds of solid muscle.
yep,
You got what was it, an 8-year old or 7-year old?
he was around 8. I want to say, yeah, you're
Yeah,
around
that
8.
was fragile, and had no fucking way of defending himself against a man that size.
nope,
His woman, come on, she's not gonna do any better. She was a tiny thing, she was a short thing.
Well, again, if you get a chance and watch those 2 episodes of Dark Side of the Ring, it it's very it'll test your stomach really, but you'll see a lot of the details that happened on that day, on that weekend, because it was over a weekend. And again, you look at things a lot differently afterwards. When it did happen, I just remember it took me a long time before I could even watch one of his matches again, bring myself to watching it, because again, it was just such a insane act that had happened. And after a while, you can say, okay, this was the wrestler, this was the man. It's just how they tell a lot of people now, you know, you got to separate one from the other. Of course, you know, great wrestler. Had this not happened, he'd be a Hall of Famer. But since it did happen, he does not deserve any of that or any of the accolades anymore because on that weekend he gave them away and soiled those moments.
I have a hard time watching anything as far as, what happened with him, and listening to stuff like that. I think I watched one Dark Side of the Ring, but it was the one on Bruiser Brody,
Yeah,
and I watched it because when it happened, I was living in Puerto Rico at the time, and not to go completely into the whole thing, but I thought that it was a little bit weird what happened and how the other person got away, because the other person was actually one of my favorite wrestlers growing up. So I thought, after that, I kind of lost respect for that guy,
right,
for what happened and how everything was handled. And this is 30 years later, and he still never went to jail.
right,
It was a complete cover up. But anyway, I don't want to sidetrack us from the list.
right,
Yeah.
right.
You just made the list. Wish I had your soundboard that Wally always uses on
You
his
just
show.
made the list.
Next on the list is you can't have a list of
Oh
WrestleMania
my
moments
God.
without including Mr. WrestleMania.
The boyhood dream.
The
Yeah.
boyhood dream when at WrestleMania 12 when Shawn Michaels realized his ultimate goal of becoming the WWF at the time champion. That
Well,
was a perfect moment for him.
that was crazy because the match went like what, 60 minutes or something close
Plus,
to it.
yeah.
60 minutes plus. And I remember the storyline with him and Jose Lothario, which was his trainer from the old days, I guess. And man, that was such a good moment for him. I mean, I was a Bret Hart fan, growing up all through the 80s and 90s. So I was a little salty at the time, but still, it was such a great match that it's like you really can't be mad. I mean, I know that it was all predetermined. I'm not gonna say fake because it's not fake. It's predetermined. Those guys
Right.
are complete athletes. If you think
Mm.
that you can just hop in the ring and wrestle like they do, you're sadly mistaken. Anyway, but yeah, it was such a great moment. Especially in his career, him looking at the belt on his knees, you can see the little tear in his eye and shit like that. That was really, really good. That was a great moment for WrestleMania and for Shawn Michaels, the sexy boy.
The sex.
Shit, I remember when he put Marty Jannetty through the
The
glass
window.
window with a super kick.
Oh
And
yeah.
that was the split of the Rockers, and he did it at Piper's. No, it was
No,
a barbershop.
barbershop.
Yeah, that was awesome. Like when they split, I was like, "Fuck yeah, kick his ass!"
Yeah, I was a Shawn Michaels fan as well. I know you were a Bret Hart guy, but Shawn Michaels was always one of my favorite guys. I was coming along in my wrestling fandom
Yeah.
as he was coming up as a popular person. So it was like, oh, that's the new up and coming guy. That's who I'm rooting for or whatever. And then whenever he would go against guys like Bret Hart who were more established, I would always be like, nah, I want the young guy to come in and kick his ass. So
Well,
I was cheering for HBK in that run.
he had such a personality. I mean, he had the style. He could talk on the mic, and then he could wrestle.
Yep.
None of his matches were ever boring.
So many people there have had their best match versus Shawn Michaels.
I believe Jericho recently said that his best match was against HBK.
I don't doubt it.
I just watched that last night from WrestleMania 19. I was watching that
Yeah.
last night before going to sleep, and it really was a great match.
And Jericho's another guy that's had a million great matches, but
Yeah.
HBK, what more can you say? That guy he's literally become synonymous with WrestleMania because of some of the great things, but this has to be one of his ultimate moments.
And one of his greatest entrances too, because that's the one where he zip lined all the way down.
Yeah, he's wearing the white suit or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. Oof.
I
Holy
mean,
crap.
when you talk about wrestling and wrestling all time goats, a lot of people are going to bring up Ric Flair, which without a doubt he was one of the greats, if not the great. But you cannot not put Shawn Michael in that conversation. You have to at least bring him up and say, hey, Rick's the man, but so was Shawn. You know, Rick was, during the 70s, 80s, and a little bit of the 90s. But Shawn was like when wrestling was at its peak, when everybody was watching. So I mean, television, was a different thing in the 70s than in the 90s. Everybody had more access to information. The internet was starting to pop off. So, you cannot put Shawn Michaels, you cannot leave him out of the conversation when it comes to, wrestling all-time goats.
No, you
Nope.
absolutely
No,
cannot.
you can't.
And another guy that's on that list that you always have to talk about is The Undertaker. And his streak at WrestleMania is legendary until one moment at WrestleMania 30 when it came to an end. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, and I said more on that later.
All right. Yeah, right now.
Here we are, number 5, the streak coming to an end. And for me, my biggest thing was, why Brock? Why would they choose Brock to be the guy? And so many other great talents have come and gone before and since that are even more deserving, because Brock already had that superstardom. Brock already had whatever momentum he wanted. The only thing that it did was give him just the ultimate chip on his shoulder, or the ultimate pat on the back for the rest of his life, that he could just say, "Hey, I'm the guy." You know, Paul Heyman at the time coined the phrase that he's the one in 30 and 1, or whatever it was.
21 and 1.
21 and 1. That's right. I knew I was off because it was WrestleMania 30, but I was like, fuck it, I'm rolling with it. But yeah, guys, that one of the things that everybody remembers from that WrestleMania is everybody's faces. The faces in the crowd and all that stuff. Go ahead for the live audience. Let me see what your face was whenever the 3 count hit.
Well, you guys go ahead because I kind of missed this one. So that's why I was
That.
asking. So I'll defer to you guys on this one.
Mine was
All
just that my jaw just that.
I
literally was
I
that.
think I hit one of these. It was that way for pretty much everybody, because they had built this streak up as something that would never end. And you mentioned it earlier, Wallow. You would think that he would want to have something when he retires that is like, yep, I did that. That was my thing. But he doesn't even have that. He's lost again since then. So it's like, okay, this never even mattered.
Well,
Yeah.
you gotta think. He held the title, but it wasn't for a very long time. It wasn't like a big reign like Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Steve Austin, The Rock. It wasn't title runs like that. So I mean, he was always a company man. Why would you take something that important away from him? That's something that he could have gone to the Hall of Fame with and be like, yeah, I never lost a WrestleMania. Granted, we go back to the whole predetermined thing, but still, that's something that he could have been proud of and gone to the Hall of Fame with. I just don't understand why after 20 WrestleManias they decided to end that streak for him.
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't get it either.
there's been mixed stories behind the scenes as to how it happened, who made the call. Some are saying that he was ready to call it and pick Brock. Others saying that it was Vince who made the call. But then, of course, we have everything that happened in the match itself, which is he had a concussion about 3 minutes into the match and pretty much wrestled the rest of the match, pretty much knocked out. He was out cold.
Mm.
He doesn't remember anything from that match at all. And he stated that in multiple interviews now recently, now that he's doing more interviews and kind of being more open to the public. Um, but you're right. The mystique to the Undertaker was never in titles. He really, I think it's been I want to say maybe a 6-time combined champion between WWE Championship and the World Heavyweight Championship. I want to say he's won at least good 6, maybe 7 titles and had runs with them, but none of them are memorable, like you said, like with Shawn or with Bret or Austin, Rock. Like their title runs are remembered. His was always his gimmick was his biggest thing, and the way he was able to morph it over 30 years, and be able to keep it relevant. And even going into this WrestleMania where you're getting him against AJ Styles, and this, if I know you guys haven't been watching lately, but the last 2 Raws, he's kind of blended the Dead Man with the American Badass, and and the way he's cutting his promos now, it's fresh, and again, it's proven that he still has that mystique and that attraction to him, but at this point, it's like the body just can't keep up with it anymore. So, if anything, he again was somebody who I would say should have called it after that loss too, and said, "All right, this was the loss, and keep it at just 21-1, and then right away."
How old is Taker now?
55.
55. I mean, his best days are obviously past him.
Yeah,
I
way
don't know.
behind him.
I don't understand why these guys hang on. I mean, he's done it for over 30 years, you know. He was well, I think he was the NWA before he was WCW as Mean Mark as part of the Skyscrapers with Psycho Sid, and before that he was the Skyscrapers with Dangerous Dan Spivey.
Yeah.
So I mean, you had your run. I mean, is it money? Is it the pop of the crowd that still keeps him coming back? I tell you what, I actually was never a huge fan of that American Badass character. To me, he was always Taker, and when he started doing the bike thing, and I'm a biker, I'm like,
Right.
meh. You're the Taker. Go back to that. That's what you do best. You're the dead man. Your entrances were like memorable when the whole Coliseum goes dark, and you have like this row of people holding torches, and you're walking through it, with the mist and the lighting effects and all that stuff. That was cool. You coming down on a bike is like, all right, yeah, it was cool for a little bit, but that's not memorable. The other
Right.
entrances were, but hey, it is what it is, I guess.
No, I agree with you. I do. The Taker character could only do so much, and I think, like you guys said, because of that, he was kind of always used as a transitional champion. He was the guy that they would use to feed to the next baby face that was going to take the belt and run with it, because he had memorable battles with Bret Hart, with Shawn Michaels, with Randy Orton, with Batista, with all these baby faces that they tried to push forward. Taker fought him, and he was always just that transition guy that built other guys' careers. And WrestleMania is the type of show that is known for building guys' careers. And number 4 on our countdown is definitive of just that. WrestleMania 21 was the showcase where they brought out Money in the Bank for the very first time. They introduced a way to show you who the guy is. And they put 6 guys in a match with a ladder and say, hey, whoever fucking climbs the ladder and gets the briefcase, you can cash in anytime within the next year on any champion. Go do it. So these guys would go and they would throw their bodies on, they would put their bodies on the line because of that opportunity. And in this very first one, you had guys like Edge, Chris Benoit, um, Shelton Benjamin, Christian, and a couple others that I
Van
can't think.
Dam, Rob Van Dam was part of it. I think he
Was
won it
he
actually.
was he part of the first one? I I know no, it was Edge that won. I know he snuck up there whenever everybody else wasn't
Oh,
looking or whatever, because he hid under the ring for about 10 minutes. And then when everybody got knocked out or whatever, he snuck in. And that's what set up his whole what was it? Ultimate opportunist or whatever.
right. Cashing on Cena.
Yeah, and that just him being that sneaky guy in Money in the Bank was what propelled him into that character, I guess you could say. And you said he cashed in on Cena, which is interesting because if you look at the bottom of your screen, the other part of this is Cena Rises. This was the first WrestleMania that Cena had a shot at the title.
Didn't see it, to be honest with you. I do know this. I know that Edge is back.
Which is weird to me because he went out there and he was like, dude, if I even get touched in the neck the wrong way, I could be paralyzed. And now he's doing this shit again. I
Did he
don't
have
know,
a
man.
surgery? What?
I don't know. I mean, that it could be the way he's rehabbed himself and just kind of reconditioned his body that maybe made them comfortable enough to clear him to come back. And then, especially after they cleared Daniel Bryan, after having his issue with concussions and him having to go through all the loops to prove that he was ready to go do it again, maybe that was kind of the door for Edge and possibly some of the other folks who have been sidelined with injuries to maybe be able to get a chance to come back and get that closure on their careers that they didn't get, which is really the only thing that Edge is looking to do is just kind of be able to go out on his terms. Again, highly risky because one wrong slam, one wrong bump, and that's it.
Didn't he go out a champion though?
He did. He really went out great.
Man,
He won
You
his
had it
first
made.
WrestleMania
You had
you
it made.
career,
you cannot
and then-
write that.
And then the next month, he's does his retirement speech.
It's crazy. I mean, I used to listen to his podcast and it was really good, but they stopped doing them. You know, the him and Christian had an awesome podcast, and they were hilarious. But for some reason, they stopped doing it, and I guess Edge is back wrestling, and Christian's still retired.
Yeah, and
Smart man.
And then going back to the rise of Cena, there. I mean, that was again something that a lot of people didn't really see because when he first turned into the Doctor of Thugonomics and started doing the hip hop gimmick, nobody really looked at it as something that a world champion can be built off of that. He had won the U.S. title. He had won, maybe I think he only won the U.S. title a few times, but he had some solid programs. I know he had a solid program with Eddie on that, where they were going back and forth, and he started getting some traction. But by the time it got to that WrestleMania against him against JBL really helped elevate him and say, okay, this is your time now. You are the future of this company now, and you're going to carry us from here on out, which he did for over a decade. Was the man for over a decade. Whether you loved him, hated him, he got on your nerves. You at one time you would cheer or do this or throw these up. He was that guy, and it all goes back to that WrestleMania moment.
And if you go back and watch Jose, you'll see everybody was excited for him to win.
Oh yeah,
People were on board when Cena won. The reason that they started booing and started the Cena sucks and all that stuff was because they got sick of seeing him win big moment after big moment after big moment. You got to cut a guy down to let him get that fan organic build behind him. If you're constantly trying to force a baby face down your throat, which is eventually what happened to Cena, they're never going to win in this day and age.
yeah.
Can we agree on something? Can we agree that that spinning belt was the worst belt in the history of WWE history?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely.
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 Good.
Moving on.
I hated that shit.
Yeah, absolutely. It sucked. WrestleMania 24 is number 3 on our list because that we already touched on it again a little bit earlier, but Flair's final match. And again, this is another moment with Shawn Michaels. And we talked about it earlier. These two are arguably two of the best of all time. And here they are, Shawn Michaels and the back half of his career Ric Flair at the very end of his career, and to see it go down the way that it did was awesome.
I mean, it kind of broke my heart a little bit, seeing Shawn Michaels, like kind of mumble, I'm sorry, and then super kick him, and boom, there it is. It's like don't take that away from us. It's like don't be sorry, don't say stuff like that. Just do what you're supposed to do, and it's take the old man out, put him out to pasture.
That was Old Yeller right there.
Yeah, it was a very old yeller moment for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that was such really an emotional moment as a fan because, like I said, you go way further back than I do with this, and we both have seen Ric Flair at his greatest and at his not
Yeah,
so greatest, and seen him come back. Seen Shawn have his great run in the '90s, take a 4 5 year break, and then come back and have another great second half to his career, and them having a great match. Really was a good match. And then that closing moment, it really did. It's a meme now, basically, because it says, have you ever, like, why are you so cold? Have you never cried? And then they show that where he says, I love you, I'm sorry, and then proceeds to just super kick him.
yeah,
It was really something. I know I felt it when I watched it live, and I was like, damn, that is it. And Rick, for the most part, well, retirement in wrestling is a retirement, if you know what I mean. Like some of these guys just can't stay away, and they'll come back
yeah.
sooner or later.
Well, Rick is having health issues, so I don't think he's gonna
Yeah.
be coming back to anything.
Well, no,
I
I mean
mean,
after that happened, he went to TNA Impact, and then
oh yeah,
was still working there, and it's like, oh, dude, come on. Like
let
you
it
had
go.
such a
Yeah,
great, beautiful moment to call your career out on. But again, Rick is Rick, and he loves the money.
yeah. I mean, the first time I ever saw Ric Flair, I want to say maybe 5 6 years old. He came down to Puerto Rico, and he was feuding with the champion down there. His name was Carlos Colon. And in Puerto Rico, the WWF and the NWA had their world title. Well, down in Puerto Rico, they wanted to be bigger, so they had the Universal Champion. So Rick would come down and feud with Carlos Colon, and they had some great matches. I mean, it was very memorable, especially his promos. You know, once you see that Learjet landing, you knew who was coming out of that jet.
Oh yeah.
It was not going to be anybody else besides Ric Flair. And he also feuded with Ronnie Garvin down in Puerto Rico. So I mean, that's how I found out about Ric Flair, and then I started seeing him in the NWA because back in those days there was no cable down in Puerto Rico. You had that where you tune in. You had like 3 channels, but you could get this one American channel if you turned the knob on the other side. You had to put the top knob on it was like a U, and then go to like 13 on the other knob, but it couldn't be like right on 13. It had to be like in the middle. It couldn't click on either side. If you clicked, you were not
You're
gonna
done.
get it.
You're done. Fuck off.
So you had to mess with it and leave it in the middle so the signal would come in strong. And somehow we figure out how to do it. So every Saturday we used to watch the NWA matches with Ric Flair, the Freebirds, the Boogeyman, Jimmy Valiant, Stan Hansen, Brewster Brody. I mean, back in the day, those are some old school guys that a lot of people probably don't know who they are. But anyway, I digress.
Well, go ahead with number 2 on our list, Wallow. It's some more old school
Oh my
guys for
God.
you.
Dude, I just watched this match the other day. Actually, the first day that I was here working out of my house, I couldn't log into our system because I was having all kinds of problems. And somebody posted this match on Facebook. And I start watching it, and I forgot that it was like 25 minutes long. And I'm just sitting there watching it, and I'm like, oh shit, I just watched the whole thing. And it was a really good match for 2 guys that used to wrestle so stiff.
Mm-hmm.
and their agility was like really their brute force. Because let's face it, Hogan had limited moves,
Yep.
and so did the Warrior. They were more of a personality than a wrestling thing, than wrestlers. And seeing them going back and forth, it was actually a really good match. It was very enjoyable, and seeing Warrior win both belts, because at the time he was holding the IC belt.
That's right.
And
Champion versus champion.
I like the fact that he used to change the colors on the belts.
On the strap.
Yeah, a lot of guys always kept it black, but he was the first one that came out with like a white belt. I mean, I saw Sean with a white belt, but the Ultimate Warrior was the first one to come out with like a white belt, a blue belt, a green one, a yellow one. That was pretty dope. And then when Hogan handed him the other belt, that was really fun. That was really good. It took me back in the day. That was a good match between those two.
I think for that, one of the things I love about that whole match, I think it had probably one of the best promo pictures for a WrestleMania, because going back to those days, I mean, you could find it on VHS. So you go, and I remember the cover of it was just them, Hogan doing his pose, and then Warrior like this,
Yeah.
his hands raised high, and then like almost like he's holding the WrestleMania logo there, and then just see the Ultimate Challenge, and it was such a great promo piece. And you're right, the match went on way longer than I remember it going.
Yeah.
Because I remember watching it again, everything with interest. It's like, yeah, a good 25-minute match.
Yeah.
And I mean, you gotta love the ending too, because misses the leg drop, hits the splash, rolls him over, 1, 2, and then right when the hits 3, Hogan throws his shoulder up, trying
Yeah.
to contest the pin before finally giving
Yeah.
in and accepting defeat, and then just handing the Warrior the belt. And again, at that time, being a passing of the torch to what they were going to try to build with Warrior.
But that also faded.
Oh yeah.
He didn't go very far. I mean, he had his run to the belt, and then all of a sudden, there's no more Warrior. He was gone for a very long time. I think he came back at WrestleMania 8, but still, it was. I mean, they threw away like a perfectly good storyline. The rise, and that's it. He's gone.
That's all they had.
Yeah.
That's all they had to stop there. I mean, there was a lot of
That's
the behind the scenes stuff too that was going on that we came to find out years later with politics and Warrior holding out for money, or getting busted for roids, getting let go, being brought back.
Those guys were all on roids.
No,
Yeah.
you don't say. Vince McMahon was in trouble for the same thing around that time. I wonder who was the guy who was taking that blame.
Yeah. I mean, that's why when he came back, like I said, it was probably WrestleMania 8 when he came back. That's where the whole urban legend came out that there were 2 Ultimate Warriors and that the original one had died because he looked so much smaller in size.
Mm-hmm.
He was still ripped and cut, but not as bulking as he was in the early 90s. And to prove that it really was him.
You remember when Renegade showed up on WCW and everybody thought that it was the Warrior going by a different name?
Right. I mean, talk about a blatant ripoff on a character.
Yeah, that was terrible. And that's ultimately why we couldn't put Warrior at number 1, and the number 1 WrestleMania moment on our list is one that it changed the course of history, and they actually ran with it on the backside. They didn't just pass the torch and then just fumble it. They took it and ran with it, and that's at WrestleMania 13, Stone Cold versus Bret Hart in the I Quit match, where they essentially did the double turn, the face heel turn. Stone Cold came in as kind of that bad guy still, and Bret Hart was that tentative face. But after this match, there was no doubt that Bret Hart was now a heel and Stone Cold was the baby face of all baby faces.
Well, I mean, you can't really call him a baby face. He was what they call
He was the anti-hero.
He was the baby heel, I guess. But you really can't call him a baby face,
That's
you know,
true.
because
Yeah.
he would still curse. He was anti-authority. He didn't care who he went against. He could have gone against another heel, and he was going to be more heel than them. And if you saw him as a baby face, he was going to stump a mud hole into the baby face's ass.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know. I never called him a baby face. I always thought that he was a baby face heel.
That's true. Yeah, because anybody could get it from him. It didn't matter if you were heel face, you were in his way, he was going through you.
Yep.
But at that time, in 97, right? WrestleMania 13 was 97. Um, Brett was still coming up, not coming up, but he was already at that level where he was one of the main guys in the company.
He was the
Mhm.
top.
And
Yeah.
Austin had already came in, was the ringmaster, changed over to Stone
Shitty
Cold.
gimmick.
Oh, that was
Shit, yeah.
horrible. Giving him the $1 million belt. I'm like, what are you doing?
Shitty gimmick.
That was
He was
yeah.
great with Brian Pillman as the Hollywood Blondes.
That was a
Oh
good tag
yeah.
team. That was awesome. But even then, when they were in WCW as the Hollywood Blondes, they broke them up for no reason,
They had
Yeah.
nothing to do with him. Yeah.
and they were their top tag team. That's crazy.
Yeah, I think they were the tag team champions, and then they just stopped
They
pushing it.
just dropped the belts and
Yeah, they
didn't
made
get
them into
up for no
singles.
reason.
Yeah, and I think Austin
Ridiculous.
came out and said not that long ago that was like probably the most fun he had wrestling. It was with Brian Pillman as his partner.
Oh, I bet that dude was freaking nuts.
They
Yeah.
both were.
That's very
And
true.
then going to that, like I said, as he's going into the match, he already won the King of the Ring, so we already established Austin 316 says I just whipped your ass, which was the starting of the race
Wildfire.
for him.
Yep.
Wildfire for him. He already gone through the broken. Wait, did he go through the broken neck part yet with Owen, or was that? That might have been later down that year when he had when Owen hit him with the pile driver
Mm-hmm.
and broke his neck. But yeah, I mean that you have the image of Austin trying to push up out of the sharpshooter with a blood-soaked face. You got Ken Shamrock there as a special enforcer referee, you know, trying
Oh God.
to get Brett to release the hold after he passed out, and it ends up to him literally having to pull him and almost do a waistlock suplex takedown on Brett. That it was just a great all-around match. And then after that, I mean, Brett became heel. Austin was the tweener in between face heel guy, and that just led to him going up, and then Brett being a good heel. His heel run during 97, 90, going into 98, well, all of 97 was really a good run. Him as the anti-American, where he was getting booed here in the States, but if they went overseas or anywhere else, he was cheered.
He was
Yep.
he was a hero. Yeah.
He was a hero.
Especially in Canada.
Yep.
I know we've talked about it before, Jose, but the flag on a pole match that they had where it was Team
Yes.
Canada versus Team USA.
Yes.
Canada erupted for them. They were so loud.
Canadian Stampede pay-per-view.
Yep, that was a good one. So this moment at WrestleMania is what sparked all that. So because of this match, his heel run was that much more impressive and that much better because he turned heel on Stone Cold.
Yep.
He was more dastardly than Stone Cold was, and that made him a villain. And then Stone Cold just rode that wave of success for the rest of his career to this very day. If you hear that glass break, you jump up out of your seat because you know that the Hellraiser's coming.
Oh yeah, I mean he still has one of the greatest entrances. Him and Undertaker, those entrances to this day. And I've been to Raws before where they've been at, and as soon as you hear either the gong or the glass break, everybody gets on their feet. The whole crowd pops. It still gets a pop all these years later.
Let's not forget The Rock.
And The Rock too, absolutely. Yeah, you hear if you
smell what The Rock is cooking,
you
yeah,
hear that, and immediately the crowd just goes wild.
Insane. Yeah, I mean, that's got to be like a shot of adrenaline times 100 for those guys.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'd like to experience that one day. You know, somebody hit my music and I come out like salsa dancing, like what's up?
Boo, go home.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. But hey, a dude can dream, bro. What's up?
Right?
Damn.
And get in contact with the local promotion, see what they can do for you.
The local promotion here is AEW.
Oh,
Fact.
That's not
That's our
that's not gonna
local
happen.
boys.
That's not gonna happen. Yeah. We're like, who are you? What are you done? You ever wrestle? No. Fuck out of here.
Have you seen Andy Williams on there, Wallow?
Andy Williams. Andy Williams.
Oh,
I believe he
yeah.
goes by the Butcher,
Oh
Butcher
yeah.
and the Bud
Yeah.
and the Blade.
Yep. I know who you're talking about.
the big dude with the mustache.
Yeah. Yeah. He looks
He-
like Stan Hansen back in the day.
Yeah.
does.
He plays guitar in my
Oh,
favorite
it does?
band, Every Time I Die.
That's your
The-
favorite man?
Yeah.
Wait, so this guy's like a musician, like for real?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every Time I Die has been around for almost 20 years.
And he's a wrestler?
Yeah, that it started as his hobby. He just got really buff, like lifting weights and stuff, and has always been
Oh,
a wrestling fan.
That man is a tank.
Oh yeah, he's a
Oh yeah,
monster.
he's huge.
But he also looks like he's 50.
But he started wrestling as a hobby, just something to do when they weren't touring.
Yeah.
And now he's in AEW doing it. So
And not playing much guitar anymore, is he?
no, they're
No,
still
they do.
touring. They
I
still
saw
they're
that.
about
Oh
to
shit.
Yeah,
Okay.
I saw them here live last year.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Damn.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess he and Jericho can talk music.
Yeah. I'm sure that's that's probably how he got booked, to be honest.
Which, by the way, you know, when Jericho comes out now and the crowd singing to Judas, that's pretty awesome because even after the song goes off, people are still singing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's a catchy fucking song.
Man, that dude's got so much staying power. Like every time you think he's fading down, he comes out, he reinvents himself and comes out better than ever.
Oh yeah. I mean, even before AEW, he went to New Japan and worked there.
Yeah.
And he completely reinvented himself there. He became kind of this almost Alice Cooper
Yeah.
face
Right.
brawler. And his whole style changed too. Like
Yep.
his whole style of wrestling over there. When he wrestled Naito, when he wrestled Omega.
I saw the fight against him. Well, the match against Omega.
Yeah, I mean
That was
when he-
pretty nice. Yeah.
It was a complete reinvention there. And then against Okada and kind of making fun of the Rainmaker given by calling himself the Painmaker. And that became a thing and it got over.
Yeah.
Jericho just has a mind for wrestling or entertainment that is just, incredible.
Yeah. It's like what was the name of that pay-per-view? It wasn't AEW yet. It was All or Nothing in Chicago. Where what was it? Who was he wrestling?
Was it Cody?
I think it was Kenny Omega was wrestling Octagon Jr.
Oh, Pentagon.
Pentagon
Jr.
Jr.
Yeah.
Yeah, and after the match, the lights go off, and you see Pentagon in the ring, but Pentagon like completely annihilates Omega, and all of a sudden he takes off his mask, and he's fucking Chris Jericho. You know, that was a really awesome switcheroo. I don't know if he was Kenny Omega. It may have been somebody else, maybe Cody, but I think he was Kenny.
I think it was Kenny because I think that was in the middle of their feud coming from Japan.
From Japan, yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah, so it was Kenny. Yeah, and to me, that once I saw that, I'm like, he's back, and he talked about never wrestling in any other organization besides WWE. But how could you not? You were not going to go back as being the top guy in WWE. You're almost 50 years old. You know, there's a bunch of new talent up there that, you know, I really don't follow because, you know, I'm an old school guy. And, you know, it's like you have to really take the opportunity and you know, be a pillar of this brand new company that is now AEW. And when somebody stole his belt, he flipped that over, you know, and made it seem like he found the belt and did all the investigating because the police wasn't doing anything. That was genius because that could have been bad press,
Yeah,
but that was really genius of him.
He
So
he knows how to market it and tell a story and
yeah,
turn it around. Yeah,
yep.
he's one of the greatest of all time, and he's another one of those guys that he's not the biggest guy, but he could put on a show, and he knows how to use a stick.
I mean
oh yeah.
the Y2J entrance, with the clock, that you just made the list, and now the inner circle with the Judas song coming out. I mean, come on, you got to give it up for that man.
He's a rock star for
Yeah,
sure.
he is for sure.
Totally.
Anyway, that's our list, guys. Hope you enjoyed this little countdown. We've got WrestleMania coming up this week, a 2-day event, first time ever. They're not going to have a soul in attendance. It's going to be broadcast to empty arenas only on the WWE network. Fucking A. What do you guys think coming up? I know,
I,
Wallow, you said you got WWE, right?
I don't.
You didn't get it?
No, I'm not. I mean,
Oh,
I saw that it said that it was free, and I'm like, oh, cool, it's free. And then somebody mentioned, yeah, it's free on the WWE network, and I'm like, boo. I'm not paying $20 for the WWE network. No offense to them, but I really
No,
don't.
it's.
I
I
don't
mean, it's
follow them
ten.
as much anymore.
It's $10, and you can sign up for the first month and get it free,
No,
and then just cancel after that.
no, I don't know. Then I might.
I mean, it's something to watch. I was thinking about doing that too, just canceling after because I don't have it anymore. I used to have it a long time ago. I don't have a use for it anymore, but there's nothing else on, so WrestleMania might be tuned in.
I don't know. There's a bunch of series that I've never watched, like Breaking Bad. I might just watch that. Make it a weekend, or I've never seen Game of Thrones, so I don't know.
Two
Maybe
good things to watch over the weekend.
maybe I'll watch Game of Thrones. Nah, I'm not gonna watch that shit.
Now's the time to do it.
Nah,
Yeah.
doesn't interest me. I'll
Ho-
rather watch Breaking Bad. That
Ho-
looks more fun.
Jose, are you going to be watching WrestleMania this weekend?
I am. I am. I'll be getting home from work just around enough time to get everything set up and watch it. I mean, granted, it's already been taped, and from what I read, they did multiple endings because it was taped because of everything that's going on right now and how Florida's changing some of their how people can gather and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So they adapted it and filmed it almost a week and a half ago, a week ago, and
Wow.
they filmed it from multiple different locations, and they've pretty much spiced everything together. They said they did multiple endings to different matches. That way, the real ending isn't spoiled. Even though there are some people who are claiming that these are some legit spoilers, I haven't read them at all yet. I'm kind of want to see how they put the show together because this is like really a very first trying to make chicken salad or chicken shit for a WrestleMania pay per view that we've seen, and the fact that they moved it to a 2-day thing is like, all right, it has my interest just for not the right reasons. I want to see the car crash.
Yeah, and that's ultimately what I think it is because they tried to make something happen. And kudos to them for trying to do something in this time whenever everybody else has caved. So good for them on that, but I think it is going to be a shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of sports without fans. Although I rather have the sports without the fans than not have any at all. So
Yeah, we're all hurting. Wallow on his show, he focuses on combat sports, a lot of MMA talk and stuff like that. They're not really getting a lot of breaking news or anything in that sport either, except for the Tony and Khabib news. But
well, I mean,
Yeah.
there's plenty of drama going on with, Tony, Khabib, Kamaru Usman, Jorge Masvidal, Kobe Covington, but those are like five guys, and obviously the John Jones situation.
Right.
So I mean, you got Conor McGregor trying to throw his name into the hat if Khabib can fight. Justin Gage has come out and said he'll do it too. Dustin Poirier has also said, I'm here, let's do it. So I mean, those are the kind of things that are going on right now. People just talking. There's a lot of talk, but we haven't seen many fights in the last 3 weeks. Actually, the only show in the whole United States in the last couple of weeks was held here in Jacksonville, Florida, and it was by an organization called Combat Night. Which every time they put on a show, they put on great shows. I mean, obviously, I'm a little biased, because I go to pretty much all the shows, but all these cats are killers, and a lot of these guys, I know them personally, and I have trained with some of them, and again, they put on such great shows. I mean, there's this kid named Steven Coslow who I saw as a high schooler coming to the gym, a little tiny guy, and now he's probably one of the top fighters in Florida. Period. It's crazy to see the progression this kid has made from being the 17-year-old or 16-year-old when he came into the gym, skinny, to this lanky dude that can pick you apart from the outside. And if you give him a chance on the ground, he's going to put you to sleep.
He's the pillow for a reason, man.
Yeah, he puts guys to sleep. Either he might knock you out, or he puts you to sleep in a rear naked choke. Either way, and then also this other guy named Ramon Tavares, which obviously I'm going to show him love too. I mean, this guy is he's got the heart of a lion. I mean, he just refuses to lose. He has some tragedy in his life, in at around Christmas time, and he got back on the horse. He was losing the fight, in my opinion, the one in Tallahassee, and something in his head clicked in the third round, and within seconds he knocked this dude out with an awesome punch. And then his next fight was a couple, like 6 weeks after that, and amazing job too. First round knockout. He fought a Muay Thai guy, and he knocked the guy out with a body kick. It was an excellent performance by both Ramon and Steven at that show. And that was with no fans, so you could hear everything. I mean, I wish I could have been there, but unfortunately I had to settle to, for watching over in pay-per-view.
Right on. Yeah. If you guys like MMA, then Wallow's the guy that you definitely want to follow. Wallow, where can they find your show at, your new show?
Well, we're transitioning right now, so we haven't, because we did our last one to date, so I still have to upload it. So the links to Locker Room Talk are still going to work until probably Tuesday, when I try to transfer everything over to McDojo show. But what's going to happen is, I'm going to try to make it to where if you follow Locker Room Talk, it should transfer over the same way. So like all you'll see is, the different name. Our pages are going to change. In Instagram, you can find us at the McDojo Show. As far as the YouTube and the Facebook page, we're going to be doing it through the McDojo Live. So it would be at McDojo Live. McDojo Live is basically our friend Rob, who basically exposes fake martial artists. And he's actually doing a documentary which was to be crowdfunded, and I think they're done. They once this whole COVID-19 shit goes away, and we have the green light to move freely like we were, he's gonna be in LA filming this documentary, which is it's gonna bring to the light a lot of these fake martial artists. Those guys that do the no hand touch knockout, and all the chi knockouts and all that stuff. It's gonna be amazing. So he came to us, and he was doing interviews with celebrities and all kinds of people, and he just couldn't do it anymore because the exposing of these fake martial artists takes so much time out of his hands. And now with the documentary, he had a bunch of people lined up to do interviews, but he just couldn't do the podcast anymore because he had so much on his plate. So he came to us and asked us, hey, would you be willing to take over the podcast part of it? So we talked about it. Chris and I decided that, yeah, let's do it. We're not going to change anything we normally do, which is talk about MMA. The only thing that's changing is that we're going to have, other guests that are not going to be local guys. I mean, we're still going to have local guys too. Don't get me wrong, but now we have, a little bit more of I don't even know how to say it. You know, people from out of town. That's what I call it.
More options are
More,
available.
yeah, more options. Normally, we will have like a couple of shows where we have guests, and then there's be a bunch of shows where we don't have any guests because we either couldn't get any guests or we didn't feel like looking for guests. But now, with Rob's connections, he's gonna set up, some of the some of the first ones, and then it's gonna be up to us to keep that going, and hopefully we'll get some good guests for you. We have some really good ones coming up. I'm actually really excited. I just can't tell you guys yet because we haven't, transitioned everything over. But within the next week, I'll be putting out promotional videos, and hopefully you'll see those people putting out, little videos as well, letting everybody know that they're coming onto the show.
Yeah, that's awesome. Stay looking out for all of that. And Jose, you had talked to me before. Are you still thinking about doing your own podcast?
Yes, I'm still working on that. Right now, I'm still putting stuff together. Been doing reviews for a while now on my Instagram. So Mugs84 is where you can find me on Instagram and read some of the reviews that I've been doing. But with everything that's kind of gone in the last month or so, I'm making some adjustments, especially with a lot of the stuff that's going to be being released on video on demand from a lot of the studios, a lot of the big releases that will be coming out this spring and are getting pushed back and moved around. So I'm going to be trying to catch up on a lot of that and then start working more on the Instagram portion and then eventually get into audio and get everything set up to have that rolling. And probably mix in some more pop culture stuff on there as well, given that how things are currently at the time with everything, and do a hybrid of movies, pop culture. I'm big into craft beer, so I'm definitely going to include some of that in there. Kind of make suggestions to go along with what to watch, what to drink along with that for anybody who is into the craft beer scene.
Oh, it's beer o'clock, bro.
Exactly.
You could just drink beer and talk about Tiger King. You would get millions of views.
Oh, geez, you're not kidding on that. Oh my god.
I refuse to watch it.
Oh,
You refuse to watch
it's a
any
train
video.
wreck.
I fucking refuse to watch it.
I mean,
It's a fucking
It looks
train wreck.
stupid to me.
this
So
is
I'm not
also the
like,
man that
fuck
said
it.
that he didn't watch Breaking Bad. He hasn't
No,
watched
no, no.
Game of Thrones.
I said that I would watch it probably this weekend. So it's not that I won't watch it. I won't watch Game of Thrones, but I will watch Breaking Bad.
See, our listeners already put a big X over you because you said no Game of Thrones.
Okay. 2 words.
Are you sure it's not 3? Guys, thanks so much for coming on. We appreciate you being here. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. I did. Catch us next Monday whenever Zach and Justin will be back, and we'll be doing our normal Nest podcast live. And until then, hope you have a good night. Peace.
Adios.
Peace.